Okay, so I trust you all had a wonderful weekend and were able to study small. At least I know you have the books now, so you should be going through them at least. Try and be reading, follow along the pages, and it should be fine. So those who missed the class on, was it Friday? Yeah. Don't worry, we'll probably go over that class again because I think there's something I should have taught you. There's something I should have taught you before that class. There was something I should have taught you before that class. I think so far we've been doing quite a lot of things, and most of them require you to perform some labs, which will require you to do some form of configuration in the Cisco IOS, right? So I think it's fair enough that we familiarize ourselves with the iOS environment, so that henceforth, if you even want to try some labs on your own, you should be able to do it, or you should be able to do the labs that I'll be posting pretty shortly. I know I've had a tight weekend. I've not stuck to my word. I haven't done your assignments and your labs, but I promise this week should be my deadline. I'll finish it up for you guys so you can have access to them, right? So for today, we'll be looking at Cisco IOS CLI Fundamentals. That'll be our topic for today. If we are all following and I can continue, kindly send a message or say something so I don't end up talking to myself. Yellow. Can I go on?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay. So for today, we'll be looking at the Cisco iOS fundamentals. In today's class, we'll be covering a few things. We'll look at device ports and components. I'll introduce you to the CLI. We'll go through the device port boot process. And then we should do a little bit of initial configuration on our devices to see what we can actually do with them. Right. Okay. So when you take a Cisco router or a Cisco switch, okay, it has a couple of things in there. And one of them happens to be a ROM. Basically, your Cisco router or switch has a lot of similarities with the computer system. You know, inside a computer, you can find things like a ROM, a flash. You have, so a ROM, you have your hard drives, you have a processor, you have all these things there. Now, there are some components that your router and switch equally share with the PC. So there's a ROM in there, there's a flash, we have an NVRAM, and then we have a RAM. Now, what role do these things play inside a PC? The ROM, first of all, contains what we call the boot up program codes, or usually known as the bootstrap. Okay. Now, this bootstrap is basically the very first piece of code that runs when you start up your router. When we do the process, we should see it. Now, the size of this ROM is usually between 2 to 2 megabytes to 16 megabytes. Okay. Now also we have the flash. The flash basically stores your Cisco IOS images. So that's the operating system that runs the device. Is stored within your flash. Okay. Now your Cisco iOS is basically internet work operating systems, right? It has got nothing to do with your iPhone iOS operating system. Now it is this operating system that contains all the commands that we can actually execute on a system. Now also, this flash can be anything from 16 megabytes all the way up. On newer devices, they tend to be quite bigger sizes, and you should be able to find about 4 gig or so, thereabout, on a device. Then we have the NVRAM. Your NVRAM is the non-volatile random access memory. It's more or less like a permanent storage area on your system. But however, what it stores is basically the startup configuration files. That's if you put any of them in there. It means when you do a configuration on your device and you save that configuration is saved inside the NVRAM. Then usually it has a size of between 16 megabytes and higher on newer devices. So depending on the device you have and the size you're going to see. Then finally, we have the RAM. So the RAM happens to be a temporal storage area which holds your running configuration files. Okay, just like our PC. When we boot up our PC, the operating system is copied from the hard drive into the RAM. It's the same thing that happens here. When you boot your PC, your iOS is copied from the flash into the RAM. And equally, that is where you run all your running configuration files. Okay, all the things you've done that is currently running the system. The RAM can be anything as little as 64 megabytes. That's very old devices, all the way high up. I know in recent times, you're likely going to find devices that have about 1 gig RAM or even 2 gig RAM, depending on the type of router you find yourself usually using, right? So these are the various parts that make up our router, and it is very important that we understand them and know what they are meant for. Okay, now let's move to our device port. However, this won't be a PPT presentation. I have a couple of live devices here which we are going to be using. Give me a minute, let me turn on my light. Okay, so let me quickly stop sharing. Okay, can you all see these devices? Now here you have a router. Okay, down there, the device at the bottom. This is a router. This is a Cisco 19 41 series router. Okay, for it to have a better view. On top of it is a switch. I think I've shown you the switch before. This is a Cisco Catalyst 2960 switch. This is just an 8-port version. So this is a smaller version that you usually would work with. Now, on your Cisco devices, we have two groups of ports, or your ports can be put into two categories. We have communication interfaces, and then we have management interfaces. Your communication interfaces are the ports that we use to communicate between other devices, which means they are used to send data from one device to the other. The management interfaces are the interfaces used to manage the device, which means when you want to configure your device, you use the management interfaces. But then when you are setting up your network for devices to communicate amongst themselves, you would use the, how do you call it? You're going to use the communication interfaces. Now, when you pick up a switch, like you see here, on this Cisco switch, You have 8 ports, which are these ones. All these ports make up your communication ports from port 1 here all the way to port 8 here. They're your communication port, as well as this 2 on the side. There's a fiber optic interface. I think I showed you this the other time, and there's a gigabit port. The management interface you have here is this one where you see the console written. This is your console port, right? On most devices, okay, or most devices that you would get, that's especially your switches, your console port is usually found at the back of the device. But on smaller devices like this, usually the console ports are in front. Is that cool? And these are status indicator lights, which means several other things, which we shall see along the class. When we pick up our router, on the other hand, usually your routers have no ports in front of them. Your router has all of its ports at the back. So yeah, if you look at it from this view, we have a couple of things behind this router. The ports on this side, that's these blue ports. There's an auxiliary here. I don't know if you can see it. My camera is not too zoomed in, but there's an auxiliary here. I don't know if you can. You might not see it, but then here you have your auxiliary port, console port, and then you have another USB connection here, which is also a console port. So everything here makes up your management interfaces. On the other side, your gigabit 0/1 port, which you see here, makes up your how do you call it? Makes up your communication interfaces, like you can see currently. Right. Now, these ports here require a specific cable for you to be able to connect up to your PC. A piece of you need a couple of things to be able to have access to this device. You need a cable and you need a software. The cable is referred to as the console cable. Now, the USB port here is usable actually. It's the old, I don't know those who remember the Motorola V3 type of port. You have to download a special driver from Cisco that permits you to just plug that cable into this and you can get access to the terminal on this router to configure it. However, I know it's mostly only on routers. You don't find them on switches. You usually find them only on your routers. Probably on newer switches, you're likely going to find them, but most of these standard switches, you don't see them in there. But the common cable you find most of us using are the console cables to configure these things. Now, before I drop this router, when we look still at the back, you see a couple of things here. We have 2 empty slots. This metal covering you see here, they're actually slots. And what they allow you to do is they allow you to plug in additional modules. So this router is just basic, okay? But for instance, if I want to add a serial port to this, or I want to add a switching module, something else, like I want to expand the functionality I have on this particular router, I'll need to buy a module. Okay, now the module I'm actually going to buy is going to be something like this. Hold on, let me show you. So, so this is a serial model. Okay, this is a serial model, and that's how it looks like basically. Okay, so this is our serial model. This is our serial model. This particularly is an RJ45 type. I remember telling you that when we were doing the cables and connections, we saw the serial models, we saw the DV35 type, and then we saw this one, the DS1. So this is a typical example of a DS1 cable. This is a typical example of a DS1 cable. So if you see them around, so if I want to put that functionality in there, I'd have to remove these slot covers and plug in the module itself, and I can have access to it. So that's it for our devices. Now let's look at the cable that we can use to connect these things. Now we have what we call a console cable. If you have come across one before, But on a console cable, we have this. One end of the console cable is a serial connection, like you see here. And then the other side is going to be an RJ45 connection. Okay. Now, however, on most of our newer machines we find ourselves using, like our laptops, most laptops these days don't come with a serial port on them. So it means if I have a cable like this, it'll be very difficult for me to use it on my laptop. The options available to you are these. It's either we buy another cable that looks something like this. We call this a serial to USB converter. So you buy a cable like this, one end of it is a serial, the other end is a USB. You install drivers for it, and then you can actually connect it to your console cable. So I'll usually connect the console cable like this. I pick this side and I just slot it into this hole like that. Then I can use this cable on my laptop. Now there's one route you can go. The other option available to you is to actually buy a proper USB serial cable or USB console cable. Let me put it that way. Now, I have one here. So I have one here. So you can see there's a USB cable. One end has the RJ45 connector. The other end is what is USB. So we can get cables like this, which make it easier to work with your routers and your switches. Okay. However, when you're buying, make sure you buy very good ones because some of them you buy them and they don't actually work out. Okay. Now, this cable you see here, you can actually make one yourself. This is typically a rollover cable. Okay, that's the name of this cable. Realize when we're learning cabling, we learned of the straight through, we learned of the crossover. This particular cable we have here is a rollover cable. Now, there's something that is sold. It's basically a serial to rollover converter. It's a very small box. Usually, I think you might even get some USB. So one end is USB, you just plug it, and then you can terminate or design your own rollover cable. When you design a rollover cable, what it means is when you choose one standard, you just reverse it. So let's say if I choose the 568A, where I have my pin 1 being a green white, pin 2 being a green, pin 2 being an orange white, then pin 3 being a green, and then it follows in that order. I would have to reverse it at the other end of the cable. Then I can design a rollover cable out there. Right. So you can buy that kind of converter and then you put it there. Let me see if I can get one. So I show it to you on the screen. Please, I hope we are following.
Yes.
Let me get one of those cables and then show it to you. Let's see when to find. I think I found one. Let me show you. Let me just show you this. Okay, so let me share this for you to look up with me. I found one. Okay, so I believe you can see what I'm sharing.
Yeah.
So it looks something like this, but then you see this one has an RJ45 port. That would have a USB connector at the end. So you can design your own cable and plug it at the back. You get it? So you can get any of these things. So this is how we actually establish connections to our devices in here. So that's one piece of it. Now, once you have the appropriate cable that you need, the next thing we start looking at is actually the piece of what software. And you need a terminal application to be able to connect to these devices. One of the applications you need is called Putty. Putty is a very common one, which you can find by going to putty.org. So let me just go to the website straight here. So you see it. So let me share this again. Oh, yeah. So it's Putty like this, putty.org. You can download the latest version from there. Okay, so you can download it. Now, if you don't have real devices, so there'll be no point downloading this. But then it's not only used for connecting Cisco routers. When you want to do remote connections like SSH, Telnet, all those things, you can actually use Putty to do the connection. So you can always visit them at putty.org, and then you download your own, like you download a version for yourself, right? We're good. So in my case, I already have Putty set up. So I'm going to launch my Putty for you to see. Then I establish a connection on it. So like you see here, I've already, so I have my console cable with me here. So I connect it onto the console port over here like this. Now I've already connected the console port to this serial. I already have connected done the connection to the system using the USB, and then I'll connect this other portion to my computer. Okay. Now, mind you, these cables have drivers they come with, and you need to install the drivers. If you don't install the drivers, there's no way this cable is actually going to work on your machine, right? So I'm going to plug in this cable, and then we start and follow through from there. Okay. So let me equally share something else. Now, this is my device manager prompt, right? Kindly look at it. And I'm going to plug in this cable. So let's see the feedback we get if it recognizes this cable. So I plug it in. And if it recognizes it, it should pop up something. But I think I've previously installed the driver. Good. Now it's telling me, yeah, seen it though. That's it. It tells me this is not prolific 3023. Please contact your supplier, right? Though it has given it a driver, so I don't know why it is actually complaining. But then it will complain because it means it's installed it didn't install it properly, so it won't give me a COM port like you see here. Right? It's not going to give me a COM port at all, right? Would have to, so let me fix this right for you to see in case you ever experience it, you know how to correct it. So let me uninstall the driver first. Let me uninstall it. So I uninstall. I think I might have to stop sharing to be able to do it. Let me stop sharing. Wow. Can you give me a second? Let me rectify this thing. I might have to uninstall it totally. Okay, so let me uninstall it. I think it's going to create problems for me. Okay, so I'm doing that. But whilst I do it, let me quickly open Packet Tracer so you can equally follow with me. This same thing can be done on Packet Tracer. I just wanted to show you how it's done on a real device. But then let me quickly open Packet Tracer. So if you are following, kindly open your Packet Tracer as well so we can do it together. Can you open your Packet Tracer so we can follow along? Okay, so are we all in? Open your Packet Tracer. I hope you have all been able to, how do you call it, create your NetAcad account. Because if you haven't, and you're online, it will be asking you for it. Okay, so let me quickly log in. Okay, I think my device has been set up for me. So it's on COM port 13. It has an arrow on it. Why? No, my packet tracer is misbehaving. Finally, give me a second. Okay, whilst I wait for my packet tracer to launch, let me try on the putty and see if the putty gives me anything. Packet tracer. Okay, so it looks like today both of them are misbehaving, but let me quickly install the putty. So we try that. Okay, finally, packet tracer is in. Okay, so we all know how to pick up devices. At least last time we went through that, right? So I'm going to pick one router, or it could even be a switch. So let me pick one router here. So I pick maybe this. Now let me use a 1941. So I pick a 1941 router. Now let's look at the physical look of this router. This is the back of the router, like you saw with the virtual, the physical one I showed you. This is how it looks like. So these are your console ports here. And then they have a USB port. Yeah, I didn't talk about the USB. This equally has a USB port somewhere down there. Now, this USB port is put there by Cisco to make it easy for you to copy maybe things like your SATA files, your iOS images onto flash drives. Okay, that's why it is actually being placed there. So we can, so you've seen that, right? Now let's just go into the connection bit. So to connect, like I said, we need a PC. So you pick a PC, then we are going to use a console cable. Now, when you look at the cables here, they all have names. The very first one, the blue that looks like an arc, this is your console cable, right? And a console cable is plugged on the serial port of your PC. When you click on your PC, you have a serial port. This is the serial port, RS232. That's your serial port. Don't choose any of these ones, it won't work. So just choose this. Then we come to the router. The router also has a couple of ports, but we plug it on the what? Console port of the router. So console, and the connection is done. You see how it looks like? It looks like an arc. So in Packet Tracer, for you to actually connect a PC app to a router, you click, choose a PC, Then pick a console cable, connect it to the serial port of your PC. That's the RS232. Then on the router or whichever device, whether it's a switch, you connect it to the console port. Once you have done that, you click on the PC, go to the desktop tab, then you choose terminal. That's the terminal application I was talking about, just like Putty. Okay, that's your terminal application, which is just like Putty. That's just like Putty. So let's actually things open on my machine. Okay, fine. I'm trying to start the Putty 2 for you to see. All right, so we have terminal. So I click on the terminal there, and then I'm going to see these default parameters. Okay. Now these parameters are Cisco default parameters, and please try as much as possible not to change them. I'll explain to you what they actually mean. Now, the first one you see there is bits, the how do you call it? The bits per second. How many, like how much, like the data flow. How many bits do you want to send? Okay, so that I don't change it. Then the data bits basically tells you how many bits are actually what sent. It's 8 bits, like we all know. Parity is none. Don't choose anything there. Parity is basically used to check for errors, but then you set it to none and don't change it. Then you have your stop bits. All this means is after every 8 bits, that's 8 data bits, there's one stop bit, like to separate the data. Then flow control is equally none. It's basically used to check the flow of data from one device to the other. You just leave it as a stand. When you come to Putty, it's a similar thing. So if you look at the Putty I'm showing currently, this is my Putty configuration prompt. Okay. The only difference with Putty that is that on Putty, however, I'll have to choose serial connection, like you see here. Then I'll have to choose the COM port. Now, the COM port is this. If you look at the device, after installing the driver, it was assigned to COM port 13, what you see here. Right, so if I come to Putty, I need to put that information there. So I just choose serial, then I choose the COM port as what, 13. So I put it there. That's all. Now, if you come to advanced, I think, what is advanced? There's advanced somewhere. It will give you the same, the things you saw here, the same configuration is somewhere down there. Yes, so that's it. If I come to serial here, you have the same configurations there. So that it doesn't really change. Whether you are doing it in Packet Tracer or you are doing it in a live device, you have the same options out there. So I'm not going to change it. So in a live device, I just click on open to start a connection. On this one, I'll basically have to choose OK, and the connection starts. And it presents me with this particular screen that you see. That there's a fully booted up device. So it gives me information like the iOS version that is currently being run. Please, are you following? Are you with me? Are you also trying to do it? If you're having issues, let me know. If I'm going too fast, kindly let me know. So I slow down a bit because I need you all to actually follow. And I need you to do it with me too. So is it okay? Is it okay? That's what I following.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So if you're on the same page, I believe you should see this on your screen as well. Like if you were able to do the connection between the router and if you're able to do a connection between the router and your PC, it should present you with something that looks like this. This is just general information and the boots up process. That's basically what this is. Okay, you should see something like this. So, right, you should have something, you should have a view like this out there. So up there you see the boot. Good. So this basically what you see here, this is the boot process I was talking about earlier on. When you start your machine, that's your router or your switch, it initially goes through something called a post. Okay, power on self-test, like it happens with all your PCs. Now, when you initially power it up and it initiates this power on self-test, it does it just to check that everything is fine. Then it loads up your bootstrap code from the ROM. Okay. Now, the bootstrap code is then used to find your actual iOS image, which is sitting somewhere in your flash. So it will actually pick up your iOS image and then it starts to decompress it. That's when it's decompressing. What it means is it's loading this iOS image into your RAM. Right. Once it goes into your RAM, and then the remaining boot process follows up. If you have a startup configuration in your NVRAM, when the iOS is downloading, it loads up the startup configuration from your NVRAM. If you don't have anything in your NVRAM, then you are presented with something like this, like you see at the bottom of the screen. It tells you, would you like to enter the initial configuration word dialog? Because it assumes there's no configuration on this device. Now, when you choose yes, this is what happens. Let me just demo it for you to see. When I choose yes, now it is going to ask me more or less like in a wizard form. You get it? Which means it would ask me, then I supply the answers. So you can see it's asking, would you like to enter basic management setup? If I choose yes, then the wizard basically starts. So it tells you enter hostname for your router. I can enter what? Jesse as the host name. Enter enable secret. But then as a network engineer, I don't think you would want to do this. You only do this when you have really gone through the course and understand what is happening. Currently, if it says enter enable secret, do you know what it is? But it explains it to you. It tells you the enable secret is a password used to protect access to privilege exec and configuration modes. We'll talk about them soon. You see what they are. So I don't really like this mode for starters. So I would just jump out of this mode by pressing Control C, that's cancel. Now, so I cancel it, so I didn't finish through with that. So usually when you are presented with that prompt, kindly choose no and not yes. When you choose yes, it will take you through this wizard. So when you boot up a new device, before you configure it and it's asking you for the configuration, just say no so that you can do a manual configuration yourself. You decide what to do. Right, good. Now, let's continue. When you first boot up a router or a switch, the very first prompt you get, like this prompt you are seeing here, please, is the font big enough or I should increase it a bit? Can I even do that? This packet trace, I doubt if I can actually do that. Okay, let me try and see. No, I can't do it. But can you see what's on the screen? Okay. So this very first mode you find yourself in, which is the router with a greater sign like this, we call it user exec mode. Okay, user exec mode. Now, under user exec mode, there's not much you can do. Okay, it only basically allows you to check a few initial configurations you have on the device, and then it would allow you to basically change your privilege, your mode to maybe a higher mode, leave the user exec mode to a much higher mode. So let's see something like this. So first of all, let's use a command. When you get here, Cisco IOS has a lot of help features to help you out. So if you don't even know what you are doing, you can use the help access to figure it out. So to access the help, you just use a question mark. So when I type a question mark, like you see here, it tells me all the things I can actually what do. So it tells me I have this. Now this packet tracer, so you just have a very limited output. Assuming you did the real device, I'm sure the output is much greater and more. It has so many more things there. Right. Right. So we have this here, which basically is your help. Okay. Now we can see so many commands here, but the command I'm interested in is the enable command. It tells you turn on privilege what commands. Okay. So I will just have to type enable like this. Once I type enable, realize now my prompt has changed. It's no longer the prompt you saw like with a greater than sign, but now it's a hash sign telling you this particular mode is called the privilege exec mode, or simply put, you would call it privilege mode. Are we following, please? Okay. This is a connection from a live device. Right, this is a PuTTY connection. I don't know if you can see it, but this is the PuTTY connection. And it's a similar thing we have going on there. So you can see on my router is there. It's also in the what? User exec mode, or simply put user mode. Now, if I do the question mark here, the help, do you realize you have a lot more commands here than you had on Packet Tracer? Mm. Do you notice it? That you have a lot more commands here than you actually had on Packet Tracer. You see, on Packet Tracer, this is all you have. But on this real device, this is what you actually get. Right, so compare the two outputs. So this from a real device, that's a router sitting here. And then this output is from your Packet Tracer. Now, there's not much difference, but then you still have, there's quite a lot of commands there. And then you even have more. Now, on a real device, when you see more like this, all I have to do is hit the space bar and it will give me the rest of the commands. So you see, you have a lot more commands which can be used on a real device as compared to your Packet Tracer, right? So I'm equally going to enter, yeah, so I'm going to enter enable from here as well. So we see what's going on. So I do enable. Let me flip this up so it doesn't get into our way. So enable like this. So I type enable. Now over here, your mouse doesn't work. It's just your keyboard. So make sure you're typing it correctly. Now, so enable. You can see I've equally what changed my prompt, and I have a similar thing here. Right, you can see my prompt has actually changed, and I have a similar thing there. So this is also what your privilege exec mode. Okay. Now, another interesting feature you can get here is, let me go back one step, then I show you some pretty shortcuts you can actually use while you're working. So I just exit. To go back to where you came from, you type what? Exit. It takes you to where you came from. Now, in this case, I was at privilege mode. I type exit. It takes me totally out of the device. Right. Now, if I typed a different command, like here, if I didn't type exit, but I think it should be disabled or something like that, it would have taken me back to the prompt I was in. And then if I totally want to go out, I can use the command logout. And that should take me out of the device. So you see now it tells me router console 0 is now available. Press return to get what? started, right? And it's the same thing I have on packet tracer here. Okay, so let's start on packet tracer again. So I press enter and I'm on my router prompt. Now, this time around, instead of typing the full enable, I can just press the tab key. And when I press the tab key, it automatically completes it for me. So I press tab and you can see it there. You see what happens? It auto completes it. The same thing applies to a live gear. So if we go and I do enable and I press the tab key, you see it automatically will complete it for you. Now, you realize I did EN before I pressed the tab. What if I had typed just an E and I had pressed tab? You see nothing happens. The reason why nothing happens is because you have more than probably one command that starts with an E. If I want to confirm why it's not auto-completing, I can just put a question mark after the E. So I put a question mark and it shows me all the commands that all can start with an, or that all start with an E and are in this particular user exec mode. So you can see you have EMM, you have enable, you have Ethernet, and you have exit. That's why it's not showing. So I'll have to distinguish, like add one more character. That's why I have to put the word N. And now when I do the tab key, it automatically will completes it for you. Okay, so I do that and it enters. Now let me go back once again. So I do a logout. Oh no, okay, fine. Let me log out totally. So let me do a logout totally. Right. So we can see this here. Now let me start all over and show you something else. So I go back again, and this time around, I type just an EN. Now when I type just an EN and I hit enter, it still takes me to what? The privilege exec mode. So what I'm trying to tell you here, sometimes you don't need to type the whole command. You can shorten the command and it still works, just that you should know what you are typing. But assuming I had typed just an E, so let me do disable. Assuming I had typed just an E and pressed enter, it'll tell me what is an ambiguous command. You can see that even in packet tracer, it will tell you the same thing. If you type just E, it tells you it's an ambiguous command. Ambiguous command meaning there are a lot of commands starting with E. So you can't just type E and press enter. It won't work. Are we all good? We good?
Yes.
Okay, sure. So
Oh,
fine. So let's go out there. So it's the same thing. So what I want to prove to you is like whether you're using a real gear, like a real router or a switch like I have here, or you're using packet tracer, the difference is not too much. Okay. Let me quickly jump down to my switch, which is also already running. So I just unplug this for you to see how it works. So I'm connecting it to the switch now. So let me come to this. Good. So the switch is equally there, and you can see the switch is also asking me, would you like to enter initial configuration dialog? And I can choose a no, and I have my switch prompt. You get it? So the switch is equally having what? A user exec mode. So it's either whether you're working with a router or you're working with a switch, it is the same thing you're going to see. Right? So the switch equally has that same thing going on there. If I type help here, so just the question mark, like you see here, you realize I have what? The same. I have a lot of commands I can enter here. Get it? If I do space, it gives me more commands. You get it? Good. So I think our time is almost running out, but oh, these guys, I thought they upgraded it for me, but when it breaks, we just connect back again. So we have that in there as well. And I can equally go to what? The privilege exec mode. So I do EN and then it takes me there, right? So after privilege exec mode, what can you really do here? Now, in this privilege exec mode, there's not much you can do. You can actually do a lot of verification. So you want to check what configurations have been done. You can do from the privilege exec mode or privilege mode for short. Now, the few different things you can do is probably you can set your time. So you can set your time and date and those kind of things. But apart from that, you can't really do anything else, right? If you want to be able to do more, it means you really want to change configurations on the device. Where you are allowed to do that is known as the global configuration mode. To get to global configuration mode, the command is configure terminal. So I auto complete, so configure. Now, when you type one command, so this is the command itself, configure, but then there is another option that can be added to it. If you are not sure, don't forget your question mark. Always put a question mark, but this time there's a space, and it will tell me all the other options that can be added to this particular configure command. So configure, confirm, replacement of running configuration with a new configuration file. Then memory, I have network, I have override network, replace, and I have terminal. You get it? So what I would want to do is what? Is to configure my terminal, right? So I do configure, then I add, terminal to it, like that, and it would work. Now, if I don't want to do this here on a router, instead of typing the whole configure terminal, I could have just done conf t, so CONF, like this, and then space t, like you see here, conf t, and hit enter, and it will still take me to the same point. And now you can see the font has changed. I have switch into bracket config before the hash. And then here I have router into bracket config before the hash. This is what we call the global configuration mode. So you've seen all the three modes we have on your either a router or a switch. You have your user exec mode, or simply put user mode. That's the very first mode you see when you log into the device. You have the privilege exec mode or the privilege mode, which is the next place you go after your user exec mode by typing the command enable. Then we have the global configuration mode. That is where you can actually make changes to the device. And you get there from where? The privilege mode. And you do that by typing either configure terminal, or you can just do what? Config T for short. Is this clear? Is it clear, please?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So please don't forget, please try and try it as well. Once you have, I believe you have installed the packet tracer now. Have you? Ransford, have you been able to install the packet tracer?
Oh no. But I'm following.
Okay. So please try and
Yeah,
install it, so you can,
I'm following.
you can actually do it. Because once you don't practice, it becomes some way. Right, sure. So this is how we actually get into
Okay.
our devices, right? So henceforth, at least now you should be able to do some basic configurations on your device, right? You should be able to do some basic configurations on your device, right? Okay, fine. So this was just a little bit of an introduction to your CLI, for you to know how to get into it, how to do your connections and all of these things. We'll talk more of it as we go through the configuration. Okay, so that'll be it for this particular lesson. Are we good? Okay, so let me continue with something. Okay, so let's do a few things before we proceed. So from here, let me say I want to change what. So let me explain a few things. Now this switch you see here, and then this router you see here, actually happens to be the names of the devices, which we refer to as the host name. Every device on your network needs a host name. If you fail to configure this, sometimes it becomes difficult to differentiate between your devices because every switch would have the name switch and every router would have the name router. So it's important that you change it. So I'm going to change this switch's name to switch 1, that will be SW1, and I'll change this to what? R1. So to do that, we use the command host name, then followed by the name we want to put there. So I can just put maybe SW1. Now, your host name can be a maximum of 64 characters, right? It can be alphanumeric. I could have symbols in there, but then I can't have a space, right? I can't have a space in between them. So I can do something like this, host name SW1, which you instantly see that the name has what? Changed to SW1. Now let me come to Packet Tracer and do the same thing. So I can do host name. Now this time around, I'm going to do R1, but I'll put a space between the R and the 1, and let's see what it tells us. So when I do R and a 1, you can see it tells me invalid input detected at marker. Please be careful about this marker. Sometimes you enter a wrong command somewhere. When you enter it, just look at the arrow. It points out to you where you're having the problem. So in this case, I know there's not supposed to be a space, and I have put a space there. If I wanted to have a space in there, instead of putting just a blank space like this, I could have just done maybe a hyphen, which would work, or I could have done an underscore, which would also work like this. It also works. Get it? So it can contain any type of character, but then it can't have a space in there, not at all. The one more thing you need to know, the iOS is context sensitive, which means commands are expected to be entered at specific places. If you enter them at the wrong place, it is not going to work. All right, commands are expected to be entered at specific places. If you enter them at the wrong place, there's no way the command is actually going to work or do you any good. Now, let me show you a demonstration of that for you to see. Realize I just configured my host name here. Let me go back to privilege mode and enter the same command and see what actually is going to happen. So now I'm in privilege mode. And let's see what happens if I use the same command there. So I do host name, I leave a space, and then I type the same SW1 and hit enter. And you see what it tells me? It tells me invalid input detected at marker. This command is not wrong. It's a correct command. Just that I'm entering it at the wrong place. It was expecting to see this inside configuration mode. That's global configuration mode. But rather, I'm in privilege mode and I'm trying to enter the same thing. This is what we mean by context sensitive. Right, when we say a command is context sensitive, this is what it basically means because it's expecting commands are supposed to be entered at their proper prompt. Let me try something and see if it's going to work. Let me do and type post name. Yeah, it's still not going to work. Okay, the do would only work for something like show command. That's if I'm not in the privilege mode and I want to check something, I can use the do to specify. You'll see an example of that as we go along the line. So let me go back to my global config mode, and then so I have my global configuration mode there. Now my switch name is correct, switch SW1. But I'm going to do something different. Let's set up some passwords on this thing. So let's try and secure this device. Now you saw me establish the connection using the console cable to the switch, right? So okay, sure. So now, like I was saying earlier on, now sometimes you might want to secure these devices. Realize I connected via the console port. So we can actually secure that port in itself, and then we can secure other places. So I can secure the console port, Then I can also secure my privilege mode so that before I get access to privilege mode, I will be asked to supply what? A password, right? Let's do the former first. Then later on we'll come and see how we can secure the console mode. So when I want to secure the privilege mode, at global configuration mode, I type enable. So I do enable. Then what do I want to do? I want to set an enable password. So we have two options. Let me show you. Let me do a question mark. See, when I do a question mark, what do we have here? We have last sort, define the action, if no attacks. This is not really what I want to use. My interest is with just this two. So I have password, and then I have secret. So enable password, this would basically assign the privilege level password, and then this will assign the privilege level secret. What's the difference between a password and a secret? A password is in plain text, which means when I go and check my configuration file, I'll see the password there as it is. Anybody who has that access will see your password. Then you have the secret. The secret is just an encrypted version of your password, so that then when I go and do something like show running config, I won't see what the password is. The password will be there. I'll see a password has been configured, but then it would be an encrypted password I'm going to see, right? So I would use two of them, then we see the difference in what they play. So I'll first set an enable password. So enable password, and I'll just use Cisco as a password. So Cisco, like you see here, and I hit enter. Then I'll set a secret password. So fine. So I've done this. Now let me just log out of the device so you see it functioning. So to log out, the quickest way to go out, I could just type end, that END, like this, and it takes me straight to privilege mode. Or now, let me go out totally. So I'll just type the logout command. So I go out. So I'm now out. Now, when I want to go back in there and I type enter, you see, it takes me to the user configuration mode, right? But then if I do enable, what happens? It's now asking me for what? For a password. It's now requesting a password from me. So if I'm going to type the password, which was Cisco, now when I type in the password, you don't see it. The cursor will equally not move, but then your password is going to stay. So I type Cisco, and you see now I have access to what? To the privilege mode. So let's go further. So I do my conf t. Now at the configuration terminal, now let me set the enable secret. So you see the difference between the two of them. So I can do configure, enable, then secret. Then I'm going to use Cisco again, but then I'll differentiate it. So probably Cisco 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, Cisco 1, 2, 3, 4. I hit enter like this. Now let me log out. So let me end, and then let me do this. Now, once I'm out in there and I type enter again, I'm still at my user mode. If I type en, now I'm going to try right now. So right now what we've done is we've configured two passwords. I have a usual enable password and I have enable secret. Let's try the enable password first and see. That was just Cisco. So I type Cisco. It doesn't open. You see it there. It's asking me to what? To type the password again. So let me type the Cisco 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see that one gives me access to the privilege mode. So what it's trying to tell you is when you have enable password set and you come and set an enable secret, the enable secret supersedes that because that is a stronger password. Now, on as much as you can, try to always use the enable secret and not the enable password. Unless the device is pretty old and it can't really do encryption, but every device out there should be able to do it. So always use the enable secret and not the enable what? Password, right? Now, let me configure the console password. So let me secure the console port. So to secure the console port, so let me go to our global configuration mode again. Now to secure the console port, we use the command line. So line, then now what line are we trying to configure? We have several lines. Let me do a question mark for you to see. So you see we have first line 0 to 6, we have console, then we have VTY. Now the console is your primary terminal line. You get that's the connection I get by putting in a cable, a console cable. And that's what we are interested in. The VTY, which is a virtual terminal, that's got to do with connections coming over probably remote connections, something like maybe SSH or via Telnet. But for now, let's focus on just the line console, right? So I do line, then I leave a space and type console. Now, when I type console, I don't just leave it there, but then I have to type the console port number. Now, if you look here, if I do a question mark, we have the first console line is what? Is 0. We only have one console port. Whether I'm using the traditional big console port, maybe next time I'll connect to the router for you to see the difference. But here I have only one console port, so then it's just what? 0. In networking, numbering starts from 0. So line console 0. That's the console port I want to configure. I hit enter. Now, once I have hit enter, now I can put my password. If I do a question mark, it shows me all the things that can come. So it means there's so many things you can do here, but then I'm only interested in the password aspect of it, not all of these things. As we go on, we might see some of them, right? Let's just, so line console. So you can see that once we did that, our prompt has changed. So now we are in line config mode. We are no longer in the global configuration mode, but this is a sub configuration mode called the line config. So I type password, then the password I want to use. So let me just do a question mark. So the password, and then I can specify, if you do 0, specifies an unencrypted password will follow. If I type 7, this means it specifies a hidden password will what? Follow. Then password line, the unencrypted clear text password. Fine. These are options you can do, but then you can just go and then type the password straight. There will be no form of encryption whatsoever, right? So if I just type the password like Cisco, like this, Cisco console. So I have Cisco, I'm just going to add console to it. Right, so you can see the password I'm typing, Cisco console. So there's a plain text password I want to use. So I just type this and that's it. Right, so let's test it out. Then later we'll try this other two options and see what difference they make. So let me end it, then let me log out of the device. All right, so I've logged out. Now, when I press enter and I get to, oh, I didn't finish the configuration. Sorry about that. Let me finish it up. Realize it didn't take effect. Right, it didn't take effect. I'm still seeing my user mode, and I'd have to type enable, and it's going to ask me for my enable password. So it's Cisco 1234. Right, let me just go back to the global configuration mode and configure it for you quickly. So now I do my line console. So it's line console 0. Then the password again. Or I've already typed the password, but then this one, so let me just go through it all over again. So password, then I use Cisco console, like you see here. Now, after this command, I would have to use login, which means it should require this, or it should take effect right at login. If you don't put this, it's not going to work, take effect. So the first command was line console 0. The second command was password. Then the password I want to use, I use Cisco console. Then the third thing is what? Login. So I just type login like this. Now I'm done. So if I should go out and I log out totally of this device. Right. If I log out totally, let's see what happens. Now when I try to go back into the device, you see it's asking me something else. It says what? User access verification. Which means now I would have to supply a password for the console port because that is secured. So I type my console, sorry. the wrong password. It was Cisco console. Now you can see from there, I'm at the user mode. And if I do enable, it will ask me for another password here, which is my privilege mode password. And that was Cisco 1234. And I'm good to go. You get it? So this is how we secure our device. So we've done the normal password and then that. Now, let me show you what I was talking about, that someone can just go and check your running configuration and then see what you have done. So the command to do that is from privilege mode, you type show running config. This shows me the current configuration the device is running with. It means what I've done. And you know where this resides, right? So the running configuration is found where? Inside the RAM. That's the explanation we did from the beginning. This is found inside the RAM. So I just hit enter and it's going to show me my configuration. So this is what I'm interested in so far. We set up a host name and we can see the host name here, SW1. Then we can see enable secret, which was the password we set. You can see it's an encrypted password, like you see here. This is an encrypted password, right? So nobody can see it. But then the plain password we set, which was this, Cisco here, is actually visible. So if someone had access, maybe I've logged into the device and I just left my desk, someone can quickly come and do show run and see all my passwords like that, which becomes a problem. Now, when we go down and then check the console port security that we equally did, we can see it here too. When we come down, what do we see? Line console 0, password, Cisco console, login, and that's it. You get it? So we actually have given away all our passwords. But there's a quick fix to this. If I don't want anybody to see this when they should in case log in, all I have to do is I enable service password encryption. So I go to global configuration mode. And on that prompt, I use the command service password encryption. So it's a service space password hyphen encryption. So once I put this out there and I hit enter, what I've done is I've basically encrypted all my passwords. So if I go out again to the privilege mode and I type the same show running configuration file and I build, this time around, what do you see? You realize that the enable password, which initially was Cisco and was visible, is now what? Encrypted. You can see it's encrypted and there's a 7 here. This is MD5 encryption algorithm, MD7 encryption algorithm. The secret uses MD5 encryption algorithm. So that's why you see the 7. And then when I come down to where I had the console information, you can see it there. That one too is what? 7, MD7 encryption what? Algorithm. That's what you see there. So are we good? Are we good?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, sure. Then that's good. So that's basically how we secure our devices like that, right? So this just, I don't want to boggle you with too many configurations today. So let me do the last one, and then we call it a day. So once you have done all these things, it's important that you save the configuration, right? Because you can't just save and then you don't do anything else, right? So we'll save this configuration. To save the configuration, all I have to do is, we have two options we can go. Everything we have configured so far is inside our RAM and it's working there as a running configuration file. Now, we from the initial explanation I gave you, I told you have what? An NVRAM, which holds your startup configuration file. So all I can do is I can copy this running configuration file and just put it in my NVRAM and name it startup configuration file. So when the machine boots up, it knows it has to pick up something from somewhere. Or the easiest command you can use is just what? Write memory. So from privilege mode, you just type what? Write, and then it's what? Memory, like this. This saves all your work. So that's the easiest command to what? To do. So you have write memory and it tells you building configuration and it's okay. So that's a short command to use to save your configuration. If you wanted to go the other route, you'd have to do copy. What are we copying? We are copying our running configuration, and then where do we want to send it to? We want to send it to our startup configuration. This also what? And it tells you destination file and startup configuration. You have to confirm just by hitting enter. And that's it. It gives you the same thing, building configuration. So these are the two ways by which you can save your configuration files. So now that we have saved it, let's test it and see if the switch has actually saved our configuration. So I'm going to reboot the switch, and the command to do that is reload. So I type reload like this and I hit enter. It tells me proceed with reload. I have to confirm, and I just hit enter to confirm, and it's going to reboot the switch for me. Right, so it tells me reboot. So these are just syslog messages that we see. So it tells me system firewall to reload, at least for it to be prompted on what is actually going to happen. So our switch should go off, and it should come on again shortly for us to see. Yeah, so we can see the process. So we can see the switch actually going down, and it comes up again. It will tell us a couple of things out there. Good. So we can see the iOS. So this is the boot process that is happening out there. Right. So you can see the iOS image is being loaded, and it tells you C2960 LAN base 9 MKZ, and you see it there. Right. So that's our iOS loading for us. Good. So I think it's almost done loading, and it tells us everything in the. It gives us a couple of things. Let me search. So post CPU, regular test begin, status passed. Yeah, so you can see the post I talked about. Right. So it confirms so many things out there, making sure everything is fine. Good. So we are done. It's booted. It tells you press return to get what started. And there are a few ports that need to come up. Let's just wait for it. Okay, so let's just sit in there. No need to rush it up. To rush it up is going to give me issues. So let's just wait small. So running configuration saved towards NVRAM. So it finished booting. It realized there was what? A running configuration sitting somewhere. So it has to what? Pick it up. Right. Okay, so it's done. Now when I hit enter, see what happens. It's asking me for what password. So realize this tells you it saved the configuration. So this is the console password. So it's Cisco console. Now it takes me to privilege mode. Then I can type what? My enable. It's asking me for my enable password. So that's also what? Cisco 1234. And I'm there. Right. So you see, we have just been able to do a very basic configuration on the device. We have been able to save it. We have seen the various ways to secure it and all of that, and it is working well. But I don't want to save the configurations on this device. What if you do a configuration and you don't want it anymore? You can just erase it. The same way we did write memory. We use the command write erase, and that is going to clean everything I have done on this device. So it will start up like there's no configuration at all. So I just do this, and it tells you erasing the NVRAM file system will remove all configuration files. Do I want to continue? Yes, I want to continue. So NVRAM has been what? Erased. Right. So once I erase this and I reload this device again, once I have erased the NVRAM, when I reload this device, realize that this time around, it shouldn't present me with anything like the passwords and all the things that we have set on it initially. So let's quickly wait for it to. Okay, Ransford, you want to say something?
Yeah. Can you save the configuration on a remote system?
Yes, you can. We'll see how to do that. So usually in most offices, what you do is you have a TFTP server sitting somewhere, and when you are done with all your configurations, you usually have to back it up. Because in case of an event and you come and you've lost your configuration, if you don't have a backup of it, you're going to have issues. Right.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see how to do that when we deal with how to manage the iOS images. We'll learn about that one. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sure. So we have successfully flashed, we've cleaned everything out there. So now I believe when you pick up a device, you should be able to do at least a basic configuration. You should be able to save the configurations and then you should be able to wipe the configurations. Because sometimes you go and buy, you can get to La Paz and you buy one of these things. If you're lucky, you might find them there. And maybe you might have some configuration on it. You might just want to erase it so you can put yours. Right. And if there's a
So
password on it, you can reset it. Well, I'll show you how to do that.
the switches, the Cisco switches and routers.
Yeah.
Is it possible you can get some secondhand around?
Yeah, sure, you can. Yes, you can. Sometimes if you are lucky, you can pick some like La Paz. I've seen some there a couple of times. Just that you have to be careful before you pick them up. You get it. Mine like this. I think these ones they were almost new. But I think both of them were new when I got them. This was it belonged to a company. They were folding up, and I managed to steal it for a good price. But this I know this is pretty expensive. This is about almost $700 or $800 like that. But the one down there, I bought them from eBay. The switches, someone bought them. They were two. I think each of them was like 1,000 cities or so thereabout. But you, now on, I know on eBay you can get a whole rack at a cheaper price. It's just the shipping that sometimes becomes the problem. But you can get a whole lab set somewhere around
The
300.
shipping is even more expensive than
Yes, that's
the
the
cost.
thing. That's the thing. Shipping is expensive. So, but La Paz, you can get some. If I'm there and I see some, and I'll maybe take a picture and send it to you. If you're interested, you can get them. Right.
Okay.
Okay. So now you see I've erased it and now it is showing me, would you like to enter initial configuration, which means there's no configuration on the switch again. Right. So this is at least our basic iOS CLI introduction that we have done. So now I believe from henceforth, it becomes easier for you to deal with the CLI, or if I'm doing something, you should be able to follow, right? So it doesn't look all new to you and strange, right?
Okay.
Okay, so we'll end today's class here. We'll continue tomorrow, but tomorrow's class is pretty important to me, and I believe everybody should be present. At least you should. I'll try and be up very early so that we can start exactly 8. It's quite lengthy too, so we can finish it up on time. Right.
Oh.
Okay, sure. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm still working on the stuff. I know I've been very busy, but once I finish, I'll post them up and you'll have access to them. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
And
Yeah.
I'm asking, sometimes you have to give us what we'll be learning throughout this thing so that
Yes. Oh,
at
okay. I
least we
think
can.
you don't have the outline. Maybe I'll share the course outline with you so that you can. But it's on the page. When you go to the Google Classroom, the course outline is there. You see the very first PDF that is there. That's the course outline. You see it there. But I'll still
Okay.
share it on WhatsApp with you. Okay. Okay. So thank you. I can end the class now.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Nice day.